Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by Carbonite. Sign up for Carbonite and use the promo code TWiST to receive your special offer. And by MailChimp. Manage lists with up to 2,000 subscribers and send up to 12,000 emails per month for free with MailChimp.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome to This Week in Startups. It's time for our news roundup. We're going to go over the news of the week with David Young, the CEO of Joyent, Marshall Kirkpatrick, who's the lead writer over at ReadWriteWeb, and Lon Harris is here. Carmageddon's over. He finally made it over to the West Side. And Tyler Crowley might even drop an insight or two. All that and more right now on This Week in Startups.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah, we ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Introducing the newest members of the This Week in Startups producer program.
And thank you so much to the over 100 people who are now on the back channel. They're on the private email list supporting the program. That's amazing. It's been a tremendous success, and it's really helped us build out these, essentially, like, they're up to like 75 grand to build out a studio, and we got 4 of them, and it's expensive. You know, it's dropping about $500,000 on studio space. So,
I just met with one of them this morning.
One of the
at Whole Foods for just one of the producers.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
So becoming a producer, what you're trying to telegraph there is that you get a meeting with Tyler.
I'm not saying that.
No, but it does increase your likelihood of getting the meeting with Tyler.
If you're buying the juice
I'll tell you the best part
yeah.
about becoming, if you buy the juice, right? We're going juicing crazy. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, you know, one of the interesting things about the back channel program, every time I go to speak at a conference, you know, I get like 5 extra tickets, 10 extra tickets. I can bring people, whatever, and I just give them to the producers. So at the ReadWriteWeb Summit, where I gave a keynote, and they gave me, you know, a bunch of tickets, and a bunch of these guys got to come and hang out, and we did a producer's lunch, and the same thing at the Future of Web Apps. A bunch of people got to come to that one, and we had a private lunch. So we have a private lunch at any of the events I'm speaking at.
Oh.
We just talk about building startups and how to make great products. And
and the show, you get a lot of influence over the show.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that. Actually, interestingly, yesterday's show, which was great, we had a show about the connected TVs. I'm not sure if you saw it yet, but we essentially had 5 of the connected TVs here. We bought all the equipment ourselves, and we just went through it, and we, you know, it was great to just go over Roku and Google TV and the Samsung TV and the Vizio with the, you know, internet stuff built in now. It's really a revolution. Next year, TV is going to change.
Yeah, it's felt like it's coming for a while now.
Right.
I feel like a lot of early adopter kind of people. I'm still just like waiting for the mainstream market to like get it that this is here. Yeah.
Netflix is pushing them, you know, out of the nest. Get to streaming. I mean, Netflix is going to drive this because they don't want to ship those goddamn DVDs in the mail.
And I don't think any of us are doubting that it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, and it's getting pushed.
This big YouTube change that's coming that you and I have seen. That
yeah, the YouTube changes are amazing. Hey, and another amazing thing, MailChimp. I sent my email newsletter this week just commenting about my management style and some of the things Ben Horowitz was writing about. And it goes out to over 20,000 people, and I get so much great feedback. I have to tell you, running an email newsletter, whether you have 100 people on it, which is how I started, or 20 people on it, or 20,000, it is amazing. 60, 70, 80% of the people open it up. You see that in the statistics on MailChimp, and then you're able to very easily have them reply to you, and you just build this wonderful discussion, one-on-one, mano a mano. It's amazing. The amount of feedback I get every time I write something, I get 10 times more intelligence and knowledge and advice back. Everybody's like, oh my God, you're writing this stuff, you're sending it through MailChimp. What are you getting out of it? And it's like, well, you should see the replies and the relationship building. The free plan is always free on MailChimp, 2,000 subscribers and 12,000 emails per month for free. The new Social Pro features allow you to segment your list by clout, Twitter, Facebook, all that kind of stuff. And there's no contract. They're very confident. It's software as a service. So if you don't like it, you stop using it. If you like it, you buy more credits. It's easy. They're confident. Hey, and 2 confident guys on the phone, on the Skype, I should say. Marshall Kirkpatrick from ReadWriteWeb, are you there?
I am. Thanks a bunch for having me.
Oh, of course, of course. It's always great to have one of the fine writers over at RWW on the program. And how are you guys doing over there?
Oh, things are going well. There's always a lot to write about on the internet these days, and we're having a lot of fun doing it.
And David Young is on the program as well. David Young, a friend of mine who runs the company Joyent, which provides, well, you tell us, how do you describe the company now? I know it's cloud-based.
Yeah, we do one of the larger public clouds. We also sell cloud software to help other telcos globally set up their own clouds. So we just launched, for example, a new cloud in Kuala Lumpur. So very excited about that.
And you guys are known, of course, for providing a little more service, I think, than maybe some of the other cloud providers.
More service. We've developed all the software ourselves. And of course, Joyent's also the home of the new, pretty hot runtime called Node.js, which a lot of the newer developers are adopting. That is Joyent technology.
Oh, I had no idea. We are writing a story about Node.js in the Launch newsletter on Monday or Tuesday. Hey, don't steal that story, Marshall. So, hey, let's get into the news. Lon, we'll pull up your iPad here. Let's see if we can pull up Lon's iPad on the TriCaster Extreme 850.
There we go.
Ah, look at that. So we actually have your iPad.
That's my
So if we want to watch you play Angry Birds, we could do that.
Sure.
Or whatever.
Or all the other multitude of apps I still have everything I downloaded for this week in iPad on my
Yes, forever, right.
So there's just
you don't delete the old apps.
Well, they're paid for already. I already have them.
I've been deleting my paid apps now just to remove clutter. Let's hear the first story.
It's ridiculous. So the National Sheriff's Association and other law enforcement groups have announced plans to strongly support a new proposed federal law that would mandate ISPs to store logs about their customers for 18 months. Ugh. The argument is this: a lack of standards for how ISPs store and organize data means that it's much harder for law enforcement to find, arrest, and convict the suppliers and collectors of child pornography. So they're saying this is just child porn. They have, they need to get child pornographers. I guess because it's hard to argue against.
Of course.
Looking for child pornographers. The legislation introduced to the House by Republican Lamar Smith of Texas and Democrat Debbie Wasserman Schultz of Florida would force all ISPs to store network addresses for 18 months. It does not apply to wireless carriers. And similar legislation was also introduced in 2006, but civil liberties and privacy groups raised objections. It never even made it to a floor vote. So I guess, the question to the panel would be, do you think this is legislation that is inevitable? Is this going to pass? Is there something people can do if they feel strongly against it to sort of prevent this from happening?
What do you think, Marshall?
Well, I think that anonymity on the internet is a really important option. It's an important tool in the whole tool set of free democratic communication. And I get scared whenever I see a system either this or, Google Plus is super hot and they really discourage anonymous conversations as well. And we write a lot about bloggers in other parts of the world that get arrested for the things that they write that are critical of their governments. And, hopefully nothing like that would happen here in the United States anytime soon. But you always want to keep that option to communicate anonymously in a public forum available.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think, this is fundamentally about privacy, and we should all, and especially in the United States of America, be firmly on the side of privacy, both for the users of the internet, but as someone who runs a large service, we regularly interface with law enforcement on these sorts of issues, and it's just not our responsibility to monitor our customers for law enforcement. It's just not our responsibility. If you go to a hotel, the hotel does not have a webcam inside that hotel room, so that if law enforcement further down the road wants to know what happened inside that hotel room, they can run the tape. It's just everyone would be outraged by that, and this is analogous to that.
Yeah, I have to say...
In fact, hotels go to great lengths to protect your privacy in many cases.
Yeah, although you can't get a hotel room without a passport, driver's license, or credit card these days, can you? Maybe there's maybe the motels you can get.
Well, but there's a difference between asking the question, did David Young stay at the hotel, versus what did David Young do in the hotel room?
Right.
Those are different things. And,
absolutely.
If someone's a customer of the ISP, I don't have a problem with those sorts of things, of course. But the law enforcement is really asking service providers to go beyond, and I think this is just an outrage.
Yeah, it's a tremendous burden on startups, and I think that a differentiator on a feature set basis, a differentiator in the near future is going to be how anonymous is the service, how protected is your privacy, security, with lulls and anonymous and other folks. embarrassing law enforcement. I think that what we're having is an escalation right now between law enforcement and the sort of right-wing feds and everything, and the hackers. And I think the consumers are going to get caught in the middle. So we're basically, we don't want to live in a society where we all have to be treated as if we are traffickers in child pornography. Right. And that's basically what it's coming down to now, which is like, oh my God, we have to know everything you do because you might be I mean, it's 300 million people in the country. How many of them are trafficking in child pornography? Couple of thousand?
Jason, is this really about child pornography, or is this about media?
I was just about. I bet money the real pressure on this from the, in DC is coming more from the TV studios and record labels than from the. Who benefits from monitoring child pornography?
Right.
I think, I definitely think piracy is a big thing that they're looking out for. Looking for people who are infringing copyrights.
The 6 strikes in is a 6 strike law now for ISPs in, is that France that has a 6 strike law where if you get caught 6 times doing piracy, they turn off your internet connection. All this is going to do is create all kinds of different ways to protect your identity. So the internet routes around this. People are just going to get VPNs. So it's going to be like, you have your ISP, you have your VPN. I've wanted to start my own privacy service for a long time, actually, and I'm still interested in backing that as a business model, which is, give me like a browser and an IP address that rotates constantly and changes every day, every 2 days, every hour, sort of like the Tor network. If somebody made a commercial version of the Tor network that was fast, not brutally slow, I think that people would find a following.
It would need to be very user-friendly, like with the Apple philosophy. If you don't have to set it up yourself.
You're touching on a good point, which is this is actually how smart entrepreneurs think. The lesson for startups is when legislation starts bubbling, start developing.
Yeah, start developing like, hey, if the future is going to be we're going to lock everybody down, how do you keep yourself from getting locked down? Let's go to the next story.
All right, next story. According to All Things D, Twitter close to completing an $800 million round of funding, about $400 million of which they plan to use to cash out current investors and employees. They're giving the deal about 2 more weeks to go through until it's final. The New York Times already reported a week ago about the first $400 million of the deal, which is going to come from a combination of new and pre-existing shareholders. New investors rumored to include DST Global and JP Morgan. The round will value Twitter at around $8 billion, more than double the company's value the last time it took funding from Kleiner Perkins back in December. Back then they took $200 million and were valued at $3.7 billion. The new funding will bring Twitter's total cash investment, this is amazing, since its founding up to a robust $760 million. So far they've struggled a bit with monetization. They've reportedly only brought in about $200 million so far in total revenue. If you held some of this early Twitter stock, would you cash out now or would you hold on to it and hope it's going to get even more valuable?
As I told one of the large shareholders, whose name I will not mention, but you guys know I'm good friends with a lot of different people, I said, trees do not grow to the moon, sell half. What do you think, Marshall? Are you selling your Twitter shares if you had them, and or are you buying, or you hold?
Well, if I had them, I would sell a lot of them and then go talk about it on Google Plus, probably.
Interesting.
And then I'd go start another startup, and I'm real intrigued to see what these people who cash out go and do next, the ones that leave.
This is a disturbing trend, though. I like the idea of people being able to cash out, and in some cases these might be. I don't know specifically in this instance, in this round, if these are friends of mine or not. But, and I wish them the best. But I have to say, like, the amount of cash being taken off the table pre-IPO and all this kind of stuff at these mega rounds, it feels like it's driving founders out of companies. It's taking people out of the game, which in this case, given the management turnover, maybe that's what's happening here. Maybe they want to get certain shareholders below a certain threshold off the board, less involved. So, you have Ev, Biz, and Jason who are not involved in the business anymore. Maybe they're saying, hey, if we give you $100 million, will you give up your board seat or something like that? I don't know that that's the case, but I suspect that might be what's going on. David, what do you think?
I would sell 100%.
Sell 100%? Why?
So, well, I mean, the valuation's just too rich, and I love the service. I use the service. I haven't gone to Google Plus. I'm Twitter. Even got my Twitter light blue T-shirt on today. But I just think at 3.7 or whatever the valuation is they're talking about right now, we're talking about funny money, and it's really hard to see how they ever actually justify that valuation.
Yeah, an $8 billion valuation. If you were getting 25 times or 20 times your earnings,
Right.
You're talking about $400 million in earnings.
No one gets 20 times earnings in a public market.
Well, yeah.
It's very difficult.
Right, you have to be very high growth.
Yes.
And so I'm giving the highest of the public market valuation there.
Right.
And what that says is if they only have $200 million in total revenue, if they had a miraculous 40%
Right.
margin, you would be you'd be 10% of the valuation. So it might be worth $1 billion or $2 billion right now.
Right.
But it's a hot market, and you have Google, Apple, Microsoft all sitting there waiting to buy this company. I am almost going to guarantee right now that Apple buys this company.
Twitter.
Apple will buy Twitter.
Wow.
I guarantee it. They have $80 billion in cash. This is an $8 billion round. They should just come in and offer them $15 billion and make it the default platform across all the Apple products. It would be a brilliant move on Apple's part to have a foothold in social media that mattered.
Well, Jason, I think you need to back that assertion up, though. If Apple doesn't buy Twitter in the next 12 to 18 months, you can only speak to your followers through, I don't know, MySpace?
Yeah. What do you think, Tyler?
It has a baked-in valuation of that they've already figured out the business part in earnest, and it's not there yet. So the valuation is rich. It seems to have an assumption that something's figured out already that isn't necessarily.
Yeah, and I think the introduction. I'm speaking as somebody who will embrace whatever the latest thing is. So take it for what it's worth. But my Twitter usage has been cut by 2/3. I get more people clicking through. I have 100,000 followers or so on Twitter.
Yeah.
I've got 20,000 now in 3 weeks on Google+. The click-through rate on Google+, I'm getting more people clicking through to Launch, to This Week in Startups, and to Mahalo than I did, and I'm getting 10 times as many replies.
Yeah.
On it's basically 20 times Facebook, and it's double Twitter. So there's something much, much more engaging about Google+. And for some reason, they've designed it to be a traffic machine. Marshall, how much traffic is ReadWriteWeb getting currently from Google+?
Oh, it's already one of our leading sources of traffic. And it's great for traffic, but it's even better for discussions of posts before we publish them. I mean, I've been putting lead paragraphs, draft articles in full, early questions up, and getting great discussions that make for much better articles when we publish them. And I mean, I'd always done that on Twitter as well, but so far it's different and it's more, and in a lot of cases it's better on Plus.
Does this mean it's the end for Quora? Yes or no, Marshall Kirkpatrick? Yes or no?
No.
Why not?
Because the web is a big, wide, exciting place, and there are all kinds of opportunities for single-use niche networks for things like asking questions. With features like evaluating topical credibility and things like that. And I think that Quora does that really well. So there's still a place for that and lots of other types of niche functionality.
If you had a question to ask, however, Marshall, and it was related to one of your stories and you wanted to get research, where would you post it?
If it was a factual question or one that I really needed expert opinion on, I have a number of other internal systems set up to do that, but I would probably go to Quora first. But if I wanted a survey and broader perspectives, then I would go to Plus.
Interesting. David, what are your thoughts?
Well, I just got back from Indonesia, and this was a sort of interesting country because everywhere you went, people were advertising their Twitter handle. But this was also a country that everyone carried a BlackBerry, so go figure.
Yeah.
It's sort of, there are, to Marshall's point, there are places that are, people have just decided this is the technology that they're going to use to communicate. And Twitter in Indonesia is huge. And no one even gives out their email address in Indonesia. They just give out their BlackBerry PIN. And so it's very interesting. And I think market to market, you're going to have different winners. To Marshall's point, it's the web. It allows for different sorts of silos to exist and thrive, and that's fine.
I asked the same question on Quora and Plus. Yeah. Nobody responded on Quora, and dozens of responses on Plus.
I've had a similar. I used to ask a bunch of questions on Quora, and I would get one response, no response. I had some people following me. I had some numbers. Google Plus, I don't think I've ever posted anything that doesn't get 5 engaged responses, pluses or comments or shares.
I asked a question yesterday, just what are the top 25 most important companies, tools, and people in social media, and I got flooded.
I saw you got
and then I started
on
ranking it, and boy did it. I pulled it up my screen, boys, and this just like comment after comment after comment, and it's all like Kevin Rose and other people, and like people writing really long things and reordering my list. I mean, I don't know why this is so powerful, but I think it has to do with the email addresses.
Well, maybe.
Being involved in it, because you get that email follow-up in your Gmail.
It's early, though, too, and we do see this, though, where early adopters go in and they love a new system and they get hyper engaged. Yeah. And then once the rest of the world comes in, a lot of this sort of flattens out. It reminds me a little bit of FriendFeed, and there was this sort of talk
but remember, FriendFeed got ankled by Facebook, and the reason I said at the time, we should pull the tapes, that Facebook was buying that was because they saw FriendFeed as such a threat, because it was so much of a better designed product. Let's go to the next
story. Well, as long as we're already talking about it, it makes sense. You actually discussed this earlier in the week on your launch blog.
I did.
Thus far, Google has held firm that Google Plus is only for individual users. It's not for companies. It's not for brands. They've even started to remove pages that appear to be created on behalf of organizations, as well as accounts that were set up for fictional characters or fake personas, like the Darth Vader page. Google has insisted a Google Plus solution for businesses, brands, and publishers is in the works. But because the site has become so popular so quickly and is such a driver of traffic, obviously a lot of people are sort of chomping at the bit to be included. And there was some debate early in the week about certain sites being allowed to have pages on Google Plus and others not. So should Google Plus just instantly today open its doors and say, if you're a business, you can make a page, or do they have a right to take it slow and restrict what kind of users they want to have?
Marshall, what do you think? I mean, you've been following the story. I know Mashable obviously got to abuse the system and get 100,000 followers for their editor-in-chief. You guys a little pissed off about that over at ReadWriteWeb? A little bitter?
Well, we've sure discussed it a lot, and we decided not to create an official account and to respect the wishes of the Google Plus team. Hopefully they'll come out with something really awesome for business users really soon. Yeah. I mean, we've been hearing about the Twitter Business Suite for years now.
Yeah.
And where is that? I mean, that's in the handful of probably a relative handful of select folks. So hopefully Plus for businesses is right around the corner and is as well executed and compelling as Plus for individuals is today.
And the head of I don't know the Googler's name, but the head of the business effort, who's like a sales guy, he has said that he did a video message saying, hey, everybody calm down. We're going to get this out quicker. We're going to give it to a select group of people. But now that there's been so much bitterness about this, there's a lot of bitterness because it's very valuable. And you saw TechCrunch created a fake one, got it shut down. Ours got shut down. But the thing that's really infuriating for publishers is the people who behave themselves didn't get to build a following early on, and early following is important. And it's starting to become like the suggested user list controversy. You know, myself and Robert Scoble were two of the top people, and Dave Weiner, people who earned their position in Twitter. We were all in the top 10. Then they created the suggested user list, and we were all relegated to behind those 500 people they decided were anointed.
Right.
And so you can really screw up the organicness of your ecosystem by doing this. And Mashable, they should have just shut their account down. Instead, they let him change it to, you know, the editor's name.
Yeah.
It was pretty shocking that there was gambling going on in that establishment, right?
Yes, very shocking. Anyway, I don't know if it's a huge issue, but I do know it's going to be huge for brands. David, what are your thoughts?
You know, Joyent, we really sell to a small group of people on the software side, so it's not so important to us. On the public cloud side, we're selling to developers, so we have different ways to reach those people.
Yeah. And so do you use any of the sort of social networks for business, or is it just a sort of like, hey?
Yeah, GitHub. GitHub would be, you know, one of the social networks where, you know, you need to have, you know, high visibility. But beyond that, it's the standard ones: Twitter, Google Plus, Facebook. We use all of those, but I would say GitHub is where you really need to have credibility.
Right. GitHub, of course, is the developer repository where developers are putting their code and sharing it. Right. Do you actually have technical people in there, like trying to help other people and sort of provide resources to the community in order to build relationship and maybe generate leads?
Absolutely. And we run a number of large open source projects, Node.js being one of them.
Yep.
And so that's really where we're building most of our community.
And what do you think of the sort of open source becoming a for-profit company trend that we've seen over the years?
It's a very difficult thing to do well. I think a lot of people, the latest one out there, in my opinion, is the OpenStack effort. OpenStack is sort of a platform for building clouds pushed by Rackspace, and I think Rackspace got into the business saying, we'll just push some software out on people and a community will just form. You really have to have a combination. It's a bit of a lightning storm in a jar. You need to have a great sort of lead engineer. In the case of Node.js, it's Ryan Dahl. In the case of Ruby on Rails, it was David Hannemeyer Hansen, someone who's very opinionated, and then people willing to get behind, and then the technology just has to work, has to really work well and solve a problem for people. If you get that sort of, go ahead.
No, I agree. The magic has to be there, and then you have to have a driven leader. We saw Nginx, the web caching software, is going to be forming a company as well. So.
Yeah, the question is, how do you go about then monetizing it? And it's not just a simple thing of just adding services on top to be successful. You sometimes have to have a different product that comes alongside that helps you monetize. There's
tools,
a lot of different
maintenance, that kind of stuff. Let's go to the next story.
On Google Plus, as a user right now, I don't want business in there at
all.
And I hope they delay it as long as possible. But because I'm tired of seeing follow me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter. And I kind of like the freshness of it just being people talking about stuff. But as a publisher, I don't know that I'd be so anxious to get in there.
For the click-through rate and the discussions.
But if you're building your own page and all it's doing is sending you to your own page,
tell you what's going to
happen. Will it cannibalize their own site traffic?
I already know what's going to happen because I happen to be speaking to. Anyway, I was speaking with one of the top 2 people at Google, and I said, if you want to beat Facebook. I don't want to say who.
Marissa.
No, slightly above Marissa.
Larry, Sergey.
Well, anyway, I was speaking to one of the top 2 people, and I said, if you want to beat Facebook, allow publishers to monetize their page inside of Google+. And I have been writing Sheryl Sandberg about this, and Mark Zuckerberg about this. I emailed Mark and Sheryl and said, excuse me, I got to pick up those names I dropped. Okay. I emailed the 2 of them and said, why would I participate in this ecosystem if you want me to pay for likes and then I can't monetize my stream and you won't let me even advertise in my stream? You're not allowed to advertise. So I said, I'm going to start advertising anyway, and then you guys can turn my page off. And I know you're not going to do it, and if you do, who cares? Because what's the point of having a Facebook page if all it does is suck your money out? There has to be some sharing of revenue that goes on in order for publishers to buy into this as anything more than a marketing tool. And if it wants to be just a marketing tool, that's fine, but that's the missed opportunity. If Marshall puts a post up there, why not have AdSense on it? Why not have an ad to the right and let Marshall monetize that? Or let ReadWriteWeb monetize it, and now you're talking. Now you got something going there. People will put their entire articles up there and syndicate it there. What do you think, Marshall? Would that idea be something that ReadWriteWeb would do?
I really like doing business in my own house that I own and control. And that's why I'm not redirecting marshallk.com, my personal blog, over to my Google profile, a la Kevin Rose. I like to be able to move the furniture where I want it to be, and know that I have the ultimate say in when I ask someone to leave, etc.
Yeah, but if it was just your conversations, just the discussions with the editors, you made an extra 10% on your revenue every month from it.
But if this new house SEO'd 10x better,
Well, then you start getting into.
If it was a nightclub and not a house,
Now you're getting
and they
into
could get you 10 times more hot chicks.
Well, and now you're
might
getting
be
into the walled
interested.
garden, and that is the fear of many people. Before we go on, what's the next most amazing story we can tease before I go to the commercial
next
break?
most popular story, we could talk about Mac OSx Lion, or we could talk about Facebook and Zynga.
Oh yeah, Facebook and Zynga, and I have some inside information on that.
All right, well, we'll
when
talk
we get
about that
back.
one.
But let me first tell you about Carbonite. Carbonite, I use Carbonite for my backup. It's flawless. I've used it for about a year now. It works great, and it's affordable, and they have a business service that starts at just $229 a year. Carbonite Business backs up everything you have on as many computers as you have. It works great. I haven't used it for small business yet, but I'm going to. Small business being like my house with 5 computers. And you can start your free trial right now at Carbonite using the offer code TWiST, T-W-I-S-T, and get 2 bonus months. If you're a fan of the show, you're obligated to use Carbonite. Go back up your services. Everybody who, if you hear my voice right now, go use the product. It works flawlessly. As you know, we have a white label program here. We only, a whitelist program. We only take sponsors, we call them partners, who make products that Tyler, myself, or Lon, or somebody here uses and that I can endorse. And Carbonite's one of those. We're so lucky to have the advertising sold out for months in advance in this program and have it be great products like Carbonite or MailChimp I talked about before. Both of these are great products. Go use Carbonite and thank @Carbonite on Twitter. It's your Geary. It's your humble honor to do that. Thank you, Carbonite.
When is Angry Birds? When is Rovio coming on?
Oh,
You know, I should put them on the list and see.
Put them on the list. It's a great game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
why
so. I had one person email me and they're like, I am a super fan from Europe. I use MailChimp, I use Squarespace, I use Carbonite, and he just went through all the list of all the things he's using. He's like, and you're right, these are all very good products for my startup. I'm like, great. Wow, it works. What a unique advertising model. Wait for the good advertisers.
Yeah.
And we turn down advertisers all the time.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
You can't say who. You can't give us one
It
name.
would not be nice to say.
Right.
It would not be nice to say. But, you know, and I've told them why. Like, hey, it drives Mo crazy, the sales.
I'm sure.
Jason, we
Like,
should
locks
really
in a
consider
deal.
this. It's the money is right there. I mean, I understand your philosophy. All right, come on, let's go to the next story.
Next story. Tuesday saw the release of a significant amendment to Zynga's IPO filing. Perhaps the most talked about addition to the public information on the company is how closely its revenue and future is tied to Facebook.
Yes.
Zynga, the largest and most popular producer of Facebook games, FarmVille, Frontierville, Mafia Wars, and many others, disclosed that nearly all of the company's revenue comes in from Facebook, and also acknowledged in a significantly redacted developer addendum that Facebook holds exclusive rights to a number of Zynga's most popular games.
Yes.
Also, though the details are murky, it's been called into question whether or not Zynga is actually free to develop games for other social networks besides Facebook. So Business Insider's reaction to the news was they said Facebook essentially owns Zynga. Do you think that's an accurate way to couch this? And how significant is this going to be to the IPO and the future growth of Zynga?
Back to Google Plus.
Back to Google Plus.
Yeah, exactly. Facebook is, I heard from somebody high up, I mentioned on the program this week, no, not somebody high up, somebody who I was interviewing told me somebody high up who's a developer joined the Facebook games team, and Facebook is making their own games. So as I've told people, when you build inside of somebody else's ecosystem, don't be surprised when they actually go start building their own products.
And would certainly not
to
be the
compete.
first time Facebook has done that.
Oh, they've done it they do it every
They do it
time.
every time.
And so does Microsoft. So does any big company when they need revenue. So I think that these two companies are tied to the hip, but Zynga it's like, they have like a couple of years on each game. So Zynga can always make more games. I'm sure the way Mark Pincus looked at this is, I'm almost guaranteeing that the 30% they have to give them in coin, they got back equal an amount in Facebook credits for advertising credits.
Right.
So basically it just made Zynga into a juggernaut. And if 2 years from now the things expire and Facebook competes with them, fine. But they'll already have this huge head start. What do you guys think?
Well, I must confess, I am anti-Zynga, pro-Rovio, if I pick teams. I think that that FarmVille is a net negative on the human cognitive versus Angry Birds, which is a really interesting, I mean, I don't play it much myself, but the implications of that company and their developer program and aspirations are really, really interesting to me. So I think that the fact that Zynga and Facebook are, and I think everybody knows it. I mean, I think everybody knows that Zynga is a tool of zombification, and so they're being in bed with Facebook just is one more thing that makes people say ick about Facebook. That people use it despite of itself in large part, and I can't imagine that partnership is really for the users a good one in the long term.
But it may actually be 30% of Facebook's revenue, or something to that effect. Dave, what are your thoughts?
Well, I don't have a lot of thoughts about the Zynga IPO. Wish them all the best. It's been an amazing phenomenon. We have customers like Kabam that are doing similar things. What's interesting, if I could just make a sort of comment about the whole game phenomenon, it's not uncommon for us to see a game launch on, say, Joyent Cloud, or even I've heard from the Amazon guys on the Amazon Cloud, and Zynga's a big user of Amazon, and go from 0 to 20 million users in a month.
Right.
And everyone's gaga over Google Plus. The requirements to scale any application from 0 to 20 million users are really tremendous. And I think what we're going to see here is a transformation of the web from sort of a page-driven web to a real-time information-driven web. What we call at Joyent, the dirty web, the data-intensive real-time web. And we're just setting up for a world where everyone's carrying around 5 or 6 different IP addresses. Everyone's interfacing with lots and lots of data, whether it's financial services data, not just games, but financial services.
Runkeeper, where they are on their bike.
Well, and we've heard this term called the Internet of Things, and I think gaming, whatever you think about gaming, and I tend to be more in the Marshall camp as far as what a lot of these games do from an intellectual standpoint. I think they are ushering in technical capabilities that are going to provide a lot of excitement and a sort of rich field for new startups that we can't even imagine today.
It does seem that these are more powerful than even pornography on the web now. I mean, in terms of the addiction level and the time spent, I mean, it is amazing to think this, but this is drawing more people and at a faster pace than even pornography. Or gambling.
Have we seen those
studies?
Yeah,
of course, like pornography and the amount of time spent on casual games, it greatly exceeds.
Well, you could play casual games at work. That's going to be a big difference.
Yeah, okay, that's true.
I mean, depending on your job, maybe you're a very lenient employer.
But anyway, the point is, the amount of time spent on these games is extraordinary compared to the amount of time spent on other things. And I think the number of users compared to online gambling, it's like, people thought like, oh my God, poker's got millions of people playing it.
Right.
These online games, like Dave's saying, I mean, it's not uncommon for them to have over 20 million people playing them, and in Zynga's case, over 50, 60, 70 million people. These things are going to peak at 1 billion, I think, because on a global basis.
Is it a fad? Like I still feel like in 5 years, are we still going to be people still going to be playing these little games within Facebook? I mean, isn't like Minesweeper, if you went back 15 years, was like everybody at work is playing Minesweeper. We don't even have data.
Well, I mean, the game will change, but will the hour of playing some challenging game a day change? And I don't know that it will.
Well, we were watching, you start off with porn, and then now we have Netflix over the internet. I mean, that's the progression, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so the same thing is massively multi-parallel, highly data-enriched applications will lead to what? I don't think we know what the end state is.
Is it healthcare?
Connected devices at home, in healthcare, at work, connected cities. The gaming scalability requirements will probably also drive a lot of developer education around app optimization for network efficiency. That'll lead to best practices that get applied in all kinds of other more serious apps as well. And Rovio is really challenging the balance of power between developers and network carriers. Hopefully for the better in the long term for all developers, not just game developers. So I think that this craven drive for scale on the lowest common denominator is going to leave a legacy of technical and market foundation that some really interesting things will come out of later, hopefully.
The networked city phenomenon is the one that, to me, Marshall, that you mentioned that resonates most, and the healthcare one. You have 70 million people tending X number of farms each in a different state. Well, how about knowing what the precipitation, humidity, temperature, and the number of people and the actual faces moving by this location everywhere in the world. And all of a sudden, you just have this heat map of, hey, all the old people are in this area, the young people are here, you know? Or the females are here, the males are here.
Right.
Or the traffic's here, there's no traffic here. So the real-time routing of traffic, as an example, I mean, they're talking about putting sensors on every street lamp that would give every piece of information you can imagine. These sensors are going down to, you know, a couple of dollars. So you could be planting, you know, the idea of there being a fence in, you know, for borders on every state or on every house. I have 11 cameras on my house now. I mean, you could be putting these cameras, and that's not just for people, you know, with big houses. I mean, everybody's going to have 10 cameras on their house and sensors. Did this window open? Did that window open? All sent to their phones. I mean, it's going to happen. And it's going to be your heart rate. It's going to be your sweat rate. It's going to be all that stuff. And Runkeeper is the perfect example of people doing this. I have Runkeeper, the Zeo for sleeping, and Fitbit.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. So, Jason, I don't know if you realize, but a 5 Series BMW has 100 Intel Atom processors in it. And we've had some very interesting conversations with the folks over at BMW with some of the things they'd like to do with what is essentially a moving data center as it goes down the freeway. I mean, the examples go on and on. It's going to be very, very exciting. And
well, if you combine that with GPS, so now you have GPS data combined with what the RPM of the car is, what radio station is tuned in, how many people are in the car, right? I mean, you could say, if you knew how many people were in the car just by the weight on the seats, because you know who's in what seat, you could say, hey, the carpool lane is now 3 people.
So let's take it up to another step, which is, let's take it up to another step, because that car, when you want to tune the car, you get a software update. So if you can understand the telemetrics of the car in real time, you can tune the car in real time to get maximum fuel efficiency. These are the sorts of things that they're thinking about.
And as somebody
patients in hospital beds that require real-time medical attention, as their statistics drop, they get represented as a whack-a-mole someplace where a FarmVille player bonks them on the head as a fail-safe backup for automated monitoring systems.
Or if we run out of food in the crops, because we find out the crops are going to be low, in real time, we could, what's the word for terminating life early? That would not be offensive.
Euthanize?
We could euthanize people in order to balance out, we could balance out the amount of food that we have on the planet and then turn them into food, Soylent Green.
Yeah, Chairman Mao would have loved it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's actually one thing that somebody mentioned is the progressive insurance stuff. You know, like my wife was like, hey, do we want to, she's like, we're saving like 30% of our insurance. I said, how's that? She said, oh, well, you only drive 20 miles a day in your car, so we're going to put this thing with the odometer and we're going to know. And I was like, do we know the speed? She's like, no, they're not up to that yet. I was like, okay, fine. Let's do it. But I mean, why don't, this is the other question I have is we have all this information. Why doesn't, when you get in a car, why don't they take your thumbprint and based on who you are, i.e. I could set, not the government, but I should be able to set that my daughter, when she's 16 years old, can't drive above 60 or can't go on a freeway. I don't know how you do that, but can't go over 60 miles an hour. And what if you were DUI? I mean, they have the thing we have to blow into it. But what if you were caught speeding 3 times, and then they said, oh, you have to now thumbprint into your car, you have to install this thing, because you're, if you want to speed, you can either lose your license or you can put this thing into your car for $3,000. That means you have to press the button and you can only go this speed.
And was it 18 months that the ISPs would have to store that data for?
Absolutely.
That's what
yes.
saying.
All right, good. Let's. I for one,
only 18,
embrace our new overlords.
Yeah, really. It's a little scary.
I mean, it's a little scary.
Definitely what you were saying about like you monitor your house and this window opened and that. It's like, how much data do we need to be collecting about everybody?
Yeah, and where is the? I guess the thing is going to be, what is the benefit?
Well, and it's been demonstrated that once this data exists, there is a large number of groups and organizations and governments that want to get their hands on it, and then you have a massive security, privacy situation, and so maybe easier to just not.
And
well, you won't be able to get into your house because it won't boot, because it would have been hacked.
It will have been hacked. That's true. Okay, let's do the next story.
So you know what? You want to skip Lion? You don't want to talk about Lion?
I can mention
Bored with Lion? All right, so Steve Jobs this week introduced the new version of Mac OSx, nicknamed Lion. announced it would have over 250 new features, and it will bridge some of the gap between iOS mobile platform and the OS X desktop version. In particular, Apple touted Mission Control, a new platform for launching apps said to be simpler and more intuitive than the previous desktop organizer, the Finder. So
boring.
I'll skip the rest of the story. Anyone played around with Lion? Anybody care? Anybody impressed or not impressed? What's the reviews?
I'm trying to swipe on to the next story.
Yeah, exactly.
I can.
There was absolutely nothing in this release that compelled me.
The install itself was the new thing. It was
it was
cool.
so stupid though. It's like the Mission thing is like, okay, now my desktop looks like my iPad. Who cares? What's wrong with hitting the Command spacebar and then typing in C and getting Chrome and hitting Enter? Like, it's so simple. Why would you pick up the mouse?
Jason, I think the story here is we may have come to the end of desktop operating systems mattering.
Yeah, they don't. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, I can log into anything and get my Google Docs.
Exactly.
And Evernote. I mean, I have Google Docs, Evernote, and Dropbox. I take out my phone. I take out I have Android, iPad. It doesn't matter.
My Dropbox isn't working in Lion anymore. Did they kind of?
Oh, really? I don't know about that. Anyway,
you have to upgrade to a new version.
It's ridiculous that this is news because it's such a crummy update. And the same thing with the MacBook Air. Like, they're make a huge big deal of coming out with new MacBook Airs. And yeah, it's a faster processor, which is great, but I'm not having a problem with my processor. And the Thunderbolt is nothing you can plug into it.
Not yet, but you could. The main criticism of Henry Ford was there was no roads. I'll leave that one alone. But
are you saying you're going to upgrade the Air that I bought you to get the Thunderbolt? Are you saying I am?
No. The main issue with Lion is the upside down scrolling, which was kind of crazy.
Yeah, what is that?
It's by default scrolling the opposite way on the touchpad.
To simulate iOS devices.
You're pushing it up.
So right, when you go up, you push up. When it's the opposite of what we're used to.
Next story,
with scroll
please.
bars. Real estate listing site Zillow opened on Wall Street at $60 a share on Wednesday, 200% above its initial asking price, only to see these shares plummet 45% to $33 by midday. So the folks who chased this IPO on opening day and paid more than the opening price ended up getting a bit burned. For a bit of background, Zillow is a bit smaller than the average IPO company. 2010 revenues were about $30.5 million, and it's not yet profitable. So what do you think of the long-term prospects of Zillow, and how does this bode for other smaller tech companies looking to go public? And what about this opening day, everybody rushing into these tech stocks and trying to sort of buy early? Is that going to keep going as a trend?
Marshall, what do you think? What do you think?
Well, I wrote last week about Realtor.com, a big Zillow competitor, acquiring a little startup called Social Bios that had won a bunch of awards in the real estate world that was integrating social media with realty in some really interesting ways. They were also excited about jumping into Google Plus and having partitioned conversations about mortgage loan applications and home renovations with just circles of people in your life that care. And I found at least one analyst that said if Realtor.com can really nail social like that, they're going to make Zillow look like they're standing still. So I think that that's a field that is still open to new layers of disruption. And so too early to know.
And here is the story. I have it up on my laptop. Find out friends who might know this real estate agent already, and the standard stuff you would think about social plus real estate. I think these sites are amazing because I've used both Redfin and Trulia and whatever. The best part of Zillow, well, there's two things. Zillow infuriates people because they always put your house lower in California. And so everybody goes in, rushes in to correct it,
right?
Which is awesome, which is a trick I used to use. We used to estimate somebody's actual valuation in the Venture Reporter database if they didn't give it to us. And they'd be like, it's wrong. We're like, oh, well, give it to us. Like, we don't give out our valuation. I was like, okay. Well, we're going to have our estimate in there. And they're like, well, the estimate's wrong. And it was like a great way to sort of negotiate. Like, give us an idea of what it would be. We'll change our estimate. But here's the most interesting feature of Zillow, if you don't know about it, which is they have a Make Me Move, which is like, hey, if people don't want to move, you can register your home and put a price on it that you would move out of your house for. And you just see all these like dreamers like, I would move out of my house for $3 million and it's like a 2-bedroom tear down.
Hold on, that's gonna definitely happen.
But I think Redfin is the sleeping giant here. Redfin is infuriating people here in Los Angeles. And when I talk to brokers about it, they are infuriated. What they do is, instead of, I think brokers make like 3% and they split it half and half, 1.5 or something. Or maybe it's 2% each, it's 4%. So Redfin will come in and either you get like 2 levels of broker, an associated one or like their in-house one. They will set up all your appointments for you at Redfin and then give you back half of the money from the commission. So for $1 million house, if it was a $40,000 commission, you get $20,000 kickback. It's pretty significant. And Redfin said they weren't going public, but Redfin's the one I like a lot.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But what, do you think that's going to impact Zillow shares anytime soon, or would you not buy Zillow because Redfin's nipping at their heels?
No, I think all these are interesting sites. I mean,
Different
it's a low amount of revenue to go public with, 36
Yeah.
million. I mean, Joyent makes 36 million a month. I think something like that, right, Dave?
Something like that.
Something like that. They're hitting about 500.
It's not high margin though, you know.
No, he's hitting $500 million. Next story.
So we talked a little bit before about Apple maybe buying Twitter one day. There has been more talk this week about Apple possibly acquiring companies. The Wall Street Journal reported Apple is considering a possible purchase of video streaming site Hulu. Though the article quotes only an anonymous person familiar with the matter and cautions the deal is in the early stages, it still caught the interest of the web at large. It was also reported that Google and Yahoo a bit earlier may have been considering making a bid on Hulu. So what do you think is the play here? It seemed like a lot of the sentiment I saw on the web was like it was la all over again. They wanted to buy it to take it apart. Is that what you think, or is there another Apple motive here? Or will this not happen and they're just floating it as an idea?
Marshall, what do you think?
To be honest, television, I appreciate the production value, but otherwise, I take pride in the fact that my life is more high density with entertainment and information than just about anything it has to offer. So Hulu is not real relevant to me.
Okay, David, I'm assuming you're a normal person who watches 4 hours of TV a day. What do you think?
No, I'm just like Marshall. After a chicken dinner, my family gathers around the piano with our recorders and violins, and we play music. Now, of course, we watch television, but we're big Netflix users here in the Young family.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that's interesting that John Gruber mentioned today is in the new Line release, apparently Front Row is gone. So I sort of wonder what that means. What is Apple up to here? You know, because a lot of people used Front Row on the Mac to connect those Mac Minis to their televisions.
Yeah, I did.
And so if that's gone in Lion, you know, maybe they are contemplating a all through the browser, all over the internet play.
They are clearly going. I think. Oops,
You lost your.
I lost my microphone.
Your connection.
Oh, my connection. Don't worry about it. I think that. If Apple, I love the idea of Apple owning something like Hulu or Netflix.
Well, what's the play though? Because don't they already all the Hulu shows are in iTunes now?
Yes.
House, Glee,
Right,
like
but
all the
not
big
on
ones.
a monthly rental. It's on an individual
Right,
purchase.
it's on a subscription. But they wouldn't need to buy Hulu to set that up, would they?
I don't think they would, except that this. I'll tell you why. This brand is owned by 4 of the major studios.
Yeah, News Corp.
This would be a way for Apple to make nice and get the relationships. Because Hulu, by doing this, let's say it gets bought for $10 billion. That's putting a number out there.
Right.
8 billion, 9 billion, 10 billion. I don't think that's what it's going to go for, but let's just say it was 10 billion and they gave 2 billion to each of those movie studios and 2 billion to the private. Let's say it's 5 billion. They give $1 billion to each of the movie studios. That would be like, hey, here's $1 billion. We have a contract for a couple of years for these shows. Mm-hmm. We'll give you this money. Can we add a couple of years to that? And they instantly have made nice with all the studios. 4 out of 5 of them, I think, are on there or whatever it is, of the major show networks.
Yeah.
And Netflix is in trouble, and they have a rental service. I think Amazon is the proper person to purchase this, however, because Amazon desperately needs to have a rental service.
Right.
Like Netflix.
And they don't already have the iTunes style infrastructure set up. That's what's confusing to me about this. Look, what does Apple need with Hulu?
Nah, but you know,
iTunes.
when you have $80 billion in the bank and nothing to do with it, but give it back to the shareholders, why wouldn't you take a flyer?
Right.
I mean, that's one of the great things that's going to happen for the next 10 years.
They're going to build a UFO with that money.
The next
That's
10
true.
years, you're going to
Mothership.
have you're going to have a half dozen companies that are valued between $500 billion and $1 trillion. And Google, Facebook, Microsoft, I don't know if Microsoft's going to get there, but a bunch of these companies are going to start trending over Apple over $500 billion and start hitting $1 trillion, and they're going to have hundreds of billions of dollars in the bank. It's going to be boomtown for entrepreneurs.
But also, my one other question was, and I know people in the chat room have been saying this too, that, oh, it's possible they are just going to buy it and sort of dissolve it just like they did with Lala. Is there a chance that Apple would eventually get a bad reputation among the, sort of, not just among tech people and early adopters, but among the general populace for buying things people like and then taking them apart?
I don't think that they would buy it to take it apart. And I think they're probably just kicking the tires. You know, this wasn't like they're making an offer. This was they're kicking the tires.
Very early rumor. They're looking into it. Yeah.
But Apple has to do something with this money, and you know, Steve Jobs is going to, you know, sadly, you know, everybody goes at some point. There's Steve Jobs. Hopefully doesn't pass away, but at some point he's going to retire, like Bill Gates has, or there's a chance that his health may force him to retire, or he could possibly die, which would be very sad. Then innovation might not come as easy to this company. They may not just be able to innovate their way through new products. They may have to buy some things to keep up their growth. So buying Hulu, buying Twitter, sure, why not? Take a flyer. Let's invest that money. Because they're going to still have all this money coming in quarter after quarter. Let's go to the next story.
All right. Electric car company Tesla Motors is inked a $100 million deal with Toyota to produce an electric version of the RAV4 SUV. Tesla and Toyota had already reached an agreement to collaborate on research and development of a RAV4 EV, but this now expands that deal into a much larger supply agreement, calling for Tesla to supply an electric powertrain system for all the new vehicles. Manufacturing the new RAV4s will start in 2012 and continue to 2014. On word of the deal, Tesla's stock got a significant bump, over 5%, to $29.30 per share. And the company also has plans to begin producing its own second electric vehicle, the Model S sedan, in 2012. So how crucial was this deal for Tesla's future, and what do you think are the prospects for a RAV4 EV?
Marshall?
I sure hope I can come back again in the future, but to be frank, don't drive.
Don't drive. Wow.
Don't drive, don't watch
San Francisco,
TV.
No TV, no driving, huh? Did you get a computer yet? You have a computer, apparently.
No, it's all a couple tin cans and string do really well to be on the show. No, I'm in Portland, even worse.
Oh, my God. David, what do you think? Tesla.
Yeah, I mean, Tesla's a great company, amazing innovation here. You know, the one thing, and I know, Jason, you're a big supporter of the company, and in fact, you own a Tesla, don't you?
Yes.
I like that visceral sort of feeling of having a gas engine purr when I accelerate, and I don't know.
It is
I don't think you get that with the electric cars.
That's pretty disturbing, though.
Listen, I know where he's coming from because I drove a 400 horsepower Corvette before I drove the Tesla, and that was a big issue for me too. And I was actually.
I mean, from an ecological standpoint, that's like.
I was
somewhat nauseating.
No. I mean, but come on. I mean, that's not true. I mean, the Volkswagen. 12 months, 18 months ago, they put their latest diesel engine up against the Prius, and I think it was from Portland, Marshall. They drove it from Portland to San Francisco.
Diesel.
Yeah.
Pardon?
If we're talking diesel, I agree with you.
Yeah, you can get the purr from a diesel.
Sure, okay. If you want to,
what were you saying? What was your story,
diesel,
David?
I'll mum for it.
No, my story was that the diesel beat the Prius. You know, as far as the fuel efficiency, total all in. So
the Prius and the Inside are
the Germans are way into diesel, and the performance out of them are amazing.
I mean, they took the Insight, which was getting over 50 miles per gallon, that little two-little bullet, and then they made it into this one that gets 43 or something. And
when I bought the Fit, I had considered the Insight, and every single car person I talked to and thing I read was like, absolutely do not get an Insight.
It's just a disaster. I mean, but so yes, and I was actually on the verge of getting a Lamborghini when I decided to get the Roadster, and well, I also didn't get it because it was. I got enough image issues. I'm driving around in a Lamborghini. It's not going to help me. So, but the roar is an issue, but it's made up for by the fact that I beat Lamborghinis and Ferraris off the line all the time in Los Angeles. They come up, they purr their engine, and then I zook them.
You get in races with Lamborghinis in LA
all the time, every time they pull up right next to me and they start revving their engine, and then off the line,
of LA I don't get to.
You have to hit the gas on one of those cars, and it takes a second for it to actually move. Whereas with the Tesla, you hit the gas and you're gone. You're instantly gone. And when you're on the highway, you've driven with me in the highway. Well, you've been in the car too, I think.
I've been in the Tesla.
Yeah, so like from 30 to 60 is as fast as from 0 to 30. I mean, it's insane.
I compared it to being on a roller coaster, and not even like a Matterhorn gentle Disneyland roller coaster.
No, it's insane.
Like you're at Magic Mountain.
It's insane. And then when they come out with this puppy, the 4-door, which I can't wait for. I mean, that's going to be awesome. No, it's a great company led by a great entrepreneur, and I'm a fanboy. But I was just talking.
You can't be very impressed by what Elon has done over at Tesla.
It's amazing. Story. I mean, he took it from the brink of going out of business to being now a huge viable business. The really interesting thing, I was talking to a woman from the Wall Street Journal today, and she was asking me questions about it. She's doing a story. And I said, well, why did you get it? And I said, well, I like fast cars, I like technology, but I also don't like sending money to places in the world where women and homosexuals are beaten, tortured, and murdered. And for me, it's a political thing.
You thought that your hit on Canada?
Yes, Canada, where they torture, beat, and yeah. No, I'm talking about the Middle East. And then I was saying, you know, to think in our lifetime, you might be walking around Manhattan or San Francisco, and the idea of hearing trucks and hearing cars making all this noise and all this pollution and the smog and the noise pollution alone in cities, isn't it going to be bizarre to be in Los Angeles and have the 405 be totally silent?
It's going to be more bizarre to be able to see the mountains across town.
And the smog cloud has been lifting since the 70s. I mean, it used to be 10 times worse, and it's been dissipating, and it's going to go away. The concept of smog in the United States is going away. Think about how mind-blowing that is. There was a time when that was all the encompassing discussion in the United States was, my God, how are all cities going to be smog? You have to move out of the city, you're going to die. And now there'll be no smog. We don't have factories.
Air quality reports on TV all day when I first moved to California.
And it's going to be over. And then in India and China, the two smog clouds, the brown cloud that connects, it goes from, you just type in brown cloud and go to image search. It's like, here's India, and their brown cloud starts to connect with Beijing and Shanghai.
Right.
And then it goes so far that sometimes it connects with Hawaii before it dissipates.
Right.
This is going to happen in our lifetime. Mind-boggling that it will go away. And if India takes off, India and China will take off on this technology, it could be amazing. The whole world could be clean.
Maybe we can push it all over Riverside and San Bernardino like we do now.
All right, last story. Let's just lightning round. We'll just do the last story as everybody does one.
Okay, we got 3 left. Delft University of Technology in Delft, Netherlands, has received a grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to work on a new project aimed at improving traditional toilet technology for the developing world. The new toilet would ideally process human waste without relying on water or sewer lines or an external energy source. I can try to describe how it works without. Let's see if I got it. So first, it dries the waste out. It converts
Call it chocolate.
to a gas, and then finally siphons off a mixture of carbon monoxide and hydrogen that it feeds into a fuel cell stack to generate power.
So you take a chocolate.
Yes.
It dries the chocolate.
It dries out the chocolate, yes.
Then the chocolate vapors become a battery.
Yes. It
And
takes
charge
the
your
vapors
laptop.
and it can put them into a fuel cell that generates electricity in the fuel cell.
So basically, the people with the longest battery life are the people who are going to have the largest bowel movements.
Yes.
Interesting.
Finally, they
feel like
get
this
to be
is
king.
Somehow, this could spiral us into a Wall-E territory. Anyway, what do you guys think about the Bill and Melinda Gates new bathroom?
Some great.
Oh, swear jar. $10. Ship it, baby. Ship it to the swear jar.
You know what?
$10.
I think you should get a credit for that.
Yeah.
Ship
honestly.
it? No.
Fun.
Ship it. Ship it. That's the keg fund, man. We got $10 in there. All right.
Will do.
Next one.
Next one. Adobe recently signed electronic signature company EchoSign, or they acquired electronic signature company EchoSign, led to another electronic signature service, RPost, to file a suit against both companies, Adobe and EchoSign, alleging that there have been violations of their intellectual property. The complaint alleges that Adobe and EchoSign infringed on a number of patents covering systems and methods for third parties to keep track of and log electronic transactions.
So somebody patented the signature?
They're saying, it's like their method of
Marshall, what do you
whatever.
think? Give us your
Verify.
Give us your one-liner.
That was my first thought too. Think of the minds behind that. You know, I know that back in New York, there's people who are working on keeping bright young people off of Wall Street and getting them to go into tech startups instead, building things. Imagine if all those patent lawyers were instead turned into builders.
I mean, every time a lawyer files a patent, an angel dies. A puppy gets killed.
Well, this actually sounds like there is a backstory here that RPost is saying that they and Adobe were discussing working together, and then Adobe pulled out of that deal and bought this other company. So they're saying like some of their ideas got pulled into the mix or whatever. Yeah.
Anybody can sue anybody for anything.
Yeah, but Jason, you don't disagree that startups should think about patents. I mean, defensively.
Yeah, you know, it's like now it's become the Cold War. The lawyers win again because, they've got theirs, I've got to have mine. And then, we had, it's like business patents, it's like everything. I just think as an industry, this whole idea of patenting stuff is just gotten out of hand. Business patents are BS. Software patents are almost always BS. And the term of patents is too long.
Well, the patent
we have to
system
just
is
we have to pare back everything. The term of the patent, and then like reasonable licensing for the patent, and the amount that you get, and being able to stop innovation. Like in the United States, this is going to cripple our ability to compete on a global basis because we're going. I'm not saying entrepreneurs shouldn't get protection, but there's a reasonable amount of protection. And what Nathan Myhrvold is doing, where he's like patenting, he brings smart people together, and they come up with ideas to patent with no intention of ever building these products.
Well, it is interesting. I spend a lot of time in mainland China, and there the cultural sort of vision is not who came up with the idea, but who executes the idea the best. Now, for us, this is horrifying because we think that they're stealing our ideas, but it's really sort of the Chinese way is, well, let's all see who can do the idea and execute the best, which is, I think, completely over to the other side of the issue, but an interesting, different perspective.
Hey,
Our Apple stores are going to be 100 times better than our Apple stores.
Yeah, did you see the fake Apple stores going around this week? It's just amazing. Well, I mean, this is the way Zuckerberg thinks, right? I mean, he was like, oh, MySpace has this feature, Twitter has this feature, Quora has that feature, Foursquare.
There's definitely an element with him of like, I can build it better, like I can make it better.
Yeah, I think he just thinks. I think he thinks like the Chinese. I mean, I think he's just like, your idea means nothing. I'm going to out-execute it, and he has.
It's the quote from Social. If you were going to invent Facebook, you'd have invented Facebook.
Yes.
The quote from Social.
Well, and now look at, I love that Google's just like, oh, and by the way, we're going to use the same exact format that you use. It's the news feed.
Except with animated GIFs, finally.
With animated GIFs. Well, also the content column is so much bigger. The small font size of Facebook, I feel like I'm in a closet when I'm using Facebook.
Originally, it was a reaction to MySpace. It was, oh, look how much neater.
It's too
and all
constrained.
The white space.
You know what I don't like about it is also like there's two side columns. I would rather just have one column and then a big column. Like I want the body column to be big and only one other supporting column. That's what I like about Google+. There's two columns, one on each side, cramming me in, and like the news feed is like, I feel like it's like a Marx Brothers
movie. We especially
movie.
notice it with Facebook when you're running an app inside Facebook, because then you've got Facebook, and then you've got the app as a smaller box,
you
and
know,
the column
elbow
in there.
room.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at the pixel. I mean,
if you,
the main column.
If you've ever seen that branch out, which I can't stand,
yeah,
they're trying to build LinkedIn inside
so
Facebook,
annoying, yes.
but that you're running Facebook, and then you're running branch out, and you're running other stuff inside.
The main column is 730 pixels wide in G+. And it's got to be a fraction of that inside of Facebook.
Well, David is wearing his Twitter blue T-shirt. I'm wearing my Google Plus white space shirt.
Competing colors.
All right, last story.
When Facebook came out, the default monitor size was 2 inches smaller.
That's true. That's a good point.
The news feed is 450 pixels wide. It's a third smaller.
Yeah, it's 300 pixel difference.
You counted those just now?
I was counting across.
Last story. Cisco has announced plans to cut 6,500 jobs by the end of the summer, the largest round of layoffs for any tech company thus far this year. The general trend in tech up until now has been significantly less downsizing than in the recent past. Overall layoffs were down 60% from the first half of 2010. The layoffs equal about 9% of the total Cisco national workforce and are part of an overall Cisco attempt to cut $1 billion in operation costs this year. So you think this has larger implications, or is this just about Cisco needing to scale down?
Dave, you probably work with them, right?
Well, look, this has to do with what we just talked about with patents. Companies patent things because they need to protect their growth. Companies like Cisco are very acquisitive because they need to grow, because quarter on quarter they need to show growth or they get slammed in the market. I think, just like we talked about patent reform, there needs to be sort of stock market reform where companies can sit and sort of attend to their knitting. And Cisco's knitting in this case is really great data center networking products, but then they got outside of their sort of wheelhouse and went into consumer, and that was really the beginning of the end for Cisco.
Cisco.
I don't understand why. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jason, but I mean, I thought that the future was going to be one giant torrent of data going through networks that just reduced, the web's data looked like a trickle. And I thought Cisco,
Well, they have great products, but they're under threat from a Chinese company called Huawei. There's another Chinese company called ZTE that have basically out-innovated them, have sort of executed on some of these WAN products. They went into a number of very problematic forays. They bought Linksys, hasn't turned out that well. They bought the Flip. They've moved into telepresence, teleconferencing. They're in so many different businesses. WebEx. They had a very early version of what we now think of as Google Apps. And there were so many things. They never really put it all together. So it's really just, a big, fat conglomerate. Now, to John, to the management's credit there, they left these companies alone, but the companies never built a sort of synergistic whole together. And now it's kind of a mess. And there's a lot of waste. And so I think
they peaked at $250 or $300 a share, and people who've held it now are just cruising at the $16 a share forever. And people have held on since the dot-com bust, and for a decade they've watched it go sideways. And there's been no management change. And Henry Blodgett's saying, "Hey, John Chambers got to go. He can't move the needle." But it's a very big company. I mean, and huge earnings, but they obviously can't figure out how to get growth. And when you put it up against other companies, and their sales, and if you can't make it work on a global basis, I think is a really good point from Dave, is that if you can't grow on a global basis, you're going to have a hard time building a company these days. You have to figure out how to grow, and I guess they can't grow in China and everywhere, but man.
And that's what we're seeing, Jason. I mean, we saw with Dell buying Force 10 this past week, not to make this into enterprise land, but all these big systems companies are really struggling to sort of figure out their next act, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
If you bought Microsoft or Cisco in the last 10 years, you in all likelihood have lost a lot of money. You've lost money or gone sideways. And going sideways when you invest over a 10-year period is losing money.
It's losing money.
A lot of money, because you're supposed to double your money every 7 years. But still two amazing companies in terms of they throw off all this money. I think it's very hard when you get those big companies and you start having professional managers, not product people in them. And that's the lesson that people are learning. I think that's why Google is getting rewarded by having Larry Page as the CEO. And I think Google is going to become, I think Google is not going to have this problem. And they've shown with Google Plus and their ability to do crazy, insane stuff like self-driving cars and take risk, and do big, bold things like hire 15,000 people. I mean, you need to keep the founders and product-driven founders inside these companies. Wow, this has been an amazing episode. We've gone an hour and 11 minutes. Dave, people can follow you on Twitter at Joyent, or what's your personal?
David Paul Young, at David Paul Young.
And if I was a bright, young, amazing developer, sysadmin, I could just email David at joyent.com and get a job.
Joyent.com. We're hiring all the time.
Yeah, it's a great company to work for. And how many people now?
Over 150.
Wow. And San Francisco is the HQ?
San Francisco, we have offices in San Francisco, Vancouver, Beijing, Singapore, and Geneva, Switzerland.
Wow, good footprint. Everybody go check out Joyent. They do a great job. I know a lot of their customers are very happy. And everybody check out, of course, ReadWriteWeb. It's my daily read. Love the blog. Really Class A journalism with a lot of diligence and not a lot of nonsense. Not comparing it to any of their blogs. Marshall Kirkpatrick, you can follow at Marsh, A-L-L-K, right? Marshall K.
Marshall K.
At Marshall K. There you go.
Might be the guy's name.
Yeah. Thanks, Marshall.
He's very upset
stoic.
with you.
Wow, he's very stoic about it. I mean, it's amazing how he can
dare they
hold
make
that.
fun of him for not
Look
driving.
at the eyebrow, too. Marshall is just—he's so on point. He's really he's contemplating it. Then Dave is just smiling and laughing and rolling around. Marshall just stays focused. That's what I like about Marshall.
I'd love to see him come out of that like a Kevin Pollak for you.
Yeah, like a Kevin Pollak does. Hey, thanks at Carbonite and thanks at MailChimp for making my life so easy with your wonderful products. Hey, Lon, thanks. Everything going okay at Ranker?
Everything's great at Ranker. We actually I was excited to say, one of the first things you said to me when I first showed you the site was, why can't I add, people should be able to add to the list. We just launched that this week.
So I can add to a list.
Starting next week, I'll do it on the TWiST News. You can actually come in, if there's a story you want to hear, you can now enter it. It's really easy.
Perfect.
You can enter stuff into other people's
Then you can lobby your people to vote it up.
And then you can pull people in to vote, and so it's a much more open system. So
this means top rock songs, top folk songs, and top reggae songs. The Bieber's fans are going to come in, add, and then vote up a Bieber song as number one.
Yes, the person who made the list has the power to ixnay. So if
you add...
But
if they're not paying attention, the Bieber fans could come in for a couple of days deface it.
The Bieber fans could, if it was an open list, they could. We have the power to turn off open lists, though. So if people are being abusive, we can say, no, this list
No, I
has
think
to
you
be...
want it. You want to get the Bieber fans engaged, the Gaga fans battling it out.
They're my people, the Bieber fans. We got to bring them in.
Do the top 10 artists of 2012, and then just, this is what you need to do, and then just say Katy Perry is beating Lady Gaga and Bieber.
We do a lot of this
and
already,
what you do is
actually.
put like 10,000 votes for Katy Perry. Put fake votes in. And then let those guys go crazy.
Yeah, this actually worked really well. We did the best LA food trucks, and we put them on there when they started tweeting them like, hey, you're a number 3. You should be getting people in.
Look at you manipulating just like Zuckerberg and his like system.
It works.
Everybody check out at Steep Decline to follow Tyler Crowley and Squeal. What a deal. Go to Squeal. SKWEAL.com. Squeal. Everybody loves Squeal. If you're running a local business, everybody check out Squeal. We'll see you next time on This Week in Startups.
Spend the money and defeat you. Yeah, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah, we ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money. Spend the money and defeat you. It's been a minute, so you thought you were safe. You trapped behind these bars like you locked in a cage. Stuck behind bars, making minimum wage. Your bar's tender. Here's a tip, get you a raise. Ain't nobody gonna offer a profit to motherfuckers who ain't rocking it, topping the hip hop charts and then stopping it. Quick to drop a set opposite of the hottest shit, copping it. It's the profit kit. Always quick to accomplish. I'm positive. Getting green like a roster with a lot of dread. Money's piling up like the Washington Monument. The way I'm steering this track, it'll make you car sick. The only time you wanna see green is when you barfing. I'm the Mothman, consider this the prophecy. I'm in it to win it, that's why I'm making a profit, see. And I won't spend it till my rich is stupendous. And I'm selling sicker than tech is the method, is to keep it independent. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah, we ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money. Spend the money and defeat you. Yeah, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah, we ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money. Spend the money and defeat you.